Splish splash, I was taking a bath. Long about a Saturday night. Yeah, rubbed up, just relaxing in the tub, thinking everything was alright. Well, I stepped out the tub, I put my feet on the floor. I wrapped the towel around me and I opened the door. And then a splish splash, I jumped back in the bath. Well, how was I to know there was a...
Start off by adding the water. And then, yeah, you could probably do a quarter to a half, especially at the beginning. And then stir it up. Watch for those fumes, it'll smell yummy. Burn those nose hairs right off. And once it's in solution like that, then I just add more. And it's pretty common to get most of it out, but a little bit stays behind. So you can either just leave it, or you can try to scrape it out. It doesn't really, it's not enough sodium hydroxide to significantly change things. And in terms of safety, it's better to have less sodium hydroxide and more fat. If you have too much sodium hydroxide and not enough fat, that's when you get the harsh soap. There's unreacted lye in it. And we just keep stirring. It's almost there, really, isn't it?
Yeah, there's not much granules left.
So I'll probably just let that go now. And you can come back. It'll dissolve on its own because it's hot. It'll keep going.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now I measured out the 73 to 77 milliliters of sodium hydroxide solution. And then we're going to pour it into one of these small Nalgene containers so that it's easier to dispense out to tables. And that's a 4-ounce Nalgene container. So you don't have to use those, but if you have them, then it makes it a lot easier because you can carry those around. It's not less likely to spill. You can prepare it way ahead of time, days ahead of time, and just have it in the back room, as opposed to having open beakers with sodium hydroxide in it. Less than ideal. Now, it doesn't matter which one you do first. What I tell the students is just make sure you can tell the difference between the two. So if you have to take some out because you put a little too much of one in, then what you're doing. So you're doing the coconut oil first?
Yes, I am. So we need 71 grams of it. There we go, 71. How exactly we want it.
It's always better to have more fat than less fat.
Okay.
If the soap's a little fatty, then it becomes more of a moisturizing soap. If it's not fatty enough, then it becomes a chemically harsh soap.
Okay. So we can hit tear, so that we can just be measuring
right.
the Crisco now.
That's right. You have the students hit tear, so then you can add the Crisco.
So now we're adding 142 grams of Crisco.
And unfortunately, one of the things I found was that the beakers are all different masses. They can vary 20 to 30 grams. So I couldn't use a rough estimate and just measure it and see if they've got the right amount, unfortunately. So you have to just trust that they're going to do it right and get a general sense when you look at it. It's pretty loosely filled. It's kind of the way I think about it. All right, now it goes on the hot plate. Yeah, so you get it on the hot plate, put the thermometer in. And a whole lot of waiting. This is the part that takes the longest. The students have to really be watching, and they'll be really intent for the first few minutes, and then they'll get bored watching fat melt, and they'll get distracted, and then they'll let the temperature get too high. So you have to constantly be going around and reminding them, to be watching for it. It does start melting very quickly, so you can see that. They can speed up the process a little bit by mixing it with the thermometer. All right, so now it's all melted, but it's too hot. It's 51 degrees right now. And so if you have one of these plastic bins, then you can just put it into there and start the cooling process. It's almost impossible for anyone really to get the temperature right the first time. So then you can kind of, but it'll cool down pretty fast. I can. Well, you can see the temperature. I find it works better if they keep mixing it, because only the outside part will cool down. So if you keep mixing it, it gives you a better idea of temperature. Let's see, we're almost there. We're basically up at the top end of the range now. So this is when I would have the students let me know that they're ready. So that's just starting to go down to 43. Take it out of the bath. So it went down as low as 40, but then we start mixing it, and the warmer stuff in the middle will take it back up in temperature. So that's ready to go. Our sodium hydroxide is also ready to go. So now, if we have it in these little containers, in these little bottles, now we can just pour it right in and start the reaction. So I take the thermometer out, and what I do is I have them keep everything in the plastic bin. Yep. All right, so now again, the students would be ready to go to stir it. And you can use a glass stirring rod, or it looks like the plastic spoons are going to work too. I'll let you have that. And if they look, they'll see that reaction starting to happen right away. And if you start stirring, then you get a little color change. You're getting the opacity to change. There we go. So students keep mixing it like that until you're ready to use the hand blender to speed up the process, because this would take forever and it's not a very efficient way of stirring it. Make sure students know not to stir it too vigorously so it splashes. I have students label these little Dixie cups with their name and period. That way I know who gets what. And you want to make sure those are all ready to go. And so you've got a good change happening, but the hand mixer is really where it's at. So I have them take the glass rod out and put it just in the plastic bin. Just leave it down there. And then I come around and plug in my hand mixer. And I go little pulses. Just little pulses to start. And you can see it starts thickening right away. And then you can get longer and longer pulses. There you go. Make sure you do not take it out of the liquid while it's going. You can have one kind of tip it up on its end, and a little too much tip there. You're looking for like a custard thickness. So if you pick up the hand blender, yep, see how it's like staying? If you look at the top, you can see it staying in those little lumps on top. That means, I'll do this. That means it is ready to pour. And that's all it takes. So again, you can put that inside the bin and then pour it into the cups. And depending on how many people are in the group, I have 1 cup per person, and that allows, then I just try to be as equal as possible with the distribution of the soap. Now at this point, this soap is pretty darn safe in terms of causing any kinds of burns. It still could potentially, but chances are pretty low. And so I do have the students clean out the beakers at this point in the sinks. I asked them to continue wearing gloves while they clean it and be careful not to splash it around too much. But it's, yeah, they clean as much, get them to clean up as much as possible because it's a lot to clean. And then you just move to the next table. And I always bring one of these plastic bins with me so that I'm not dripping the sodium hydroxide all over the floor as I go from one table to the next. And that's soap. You just made soap. And put that into, I take one of these bins again, or 2 of these bins. I put all these containers inside of one of those bins for a particular class period, and you let it sit for 24 hours. 24 hours, you come back, peel off the outside. You can cut it into soap slices and have people wrap it up with paper towels and put their name on the paper towels, so that way they can come back and pick it up, or they can use it the next few days to test for the property changes. And that's it. You made soap.
And there was much rejoicing.
All right, I just want to give you a sense of how fast this reaction happens. So we poured this about, what, 20 minutes ago?
Yeah, about 20 minutes.
25 minutes ago. And it is pretty thick at this point, pretty solid at this point. It's still soft. A little bit comes off of my finger, but mostly done at this point. In 24 hours, it'll be hard enough for you to take off the wrapping. I also, 20 minutes ago, put this on my hand, on the back of my hand. I just did a little dab right off of the mixer, hand mixer, and I've let it sit there for 20 minutes or so, 15-20 minutes, and I'm gonna go wash it off, and I can feel a little achy, a little tingly kind of stuff, but it doesn't hurt at all. So we'll see how red it is when I wash it off. Well, I can feel it, but I can't see any red mark at all. There might be just a slight haze of a red mark where I had the soap. Yeah, it's not much. We'll see if it gets any worse. I'll take another video in an hour or so and see if it's gotten any worse. Okay, so about a half an hour later, what I'm noticing now is the follicles, my hair follicles, seem to be getting red and irritated. But again, it's so minor. Oh my, maybe I notice it if I think about it. If I stop thinking about it, I don't notice. So even in about a half an hour or so afterwards, after putting that on, no problems. So I just wanted to show that a couple hours later, the irritation's all but gone. I don't notice it at all anymore. There might be one little tiny red spot. Other than that, nothing. And so again, I had that soap on there, that fresh soap on there, for at least a half an hour, 20 minutes, half an hour, something like that, easy. So no problem.